This time, we're talking with Igor Kheifets, who has been totally crushing it recently as an affiliate marketer, an online course creator, an author, and speaker. He's the guy behind acclaimed products such as Elite Traffic Pro and the 301k Challenge. So, Igor, it's a real pleasure to meet you.
It's great to be here. I'm excited to share and excited to, drop a few nuggets and see if we can help you guys listening make some more money, have more fun doing it as well.
Sounds good. Now let's start by finding out more about you and your background, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm originally Ukrainian. I was born in Ukraine. Both of my parents are Russian. My dad was stationed in Ukraine because he was an officer in the Soviet army. He graduated the Suvorov Military Academy in Moscow. And me and my brother were born in Ukraine, and by the time I was born, my dad decided that he didn't want to stay in the army because the wall came down. It was just coming down. It was 1988, and he went into business for himself. So I grew up watching my dad doing all kinds of entrepreneurial things. And then around when I was about 12 or so, just before my bar mitzvah, as you can tell, I'm Jewish. My family decided to move to Israel, and this is where we entered this really rough patch that lasted about 10 years or so. Now, I guess you can also say that the rough patch started in Ukraine because that was the reason we moved. We ended up selling all of our possessions, and we were we were living pretty well. Like I'd say we were considered to be upper middle class back then. We had a car, we had an apartment, we had food on the table, so we didn't struggle. But towards the move, yeah, we started struggling, and I think the reason we moved was because of that. My dad made a bad investment. He borrowed about $10,000 which at the time was crazy, ridiculous amount of money, from a local mobster, Nikolai Makarenko, and obviously a guy you don't want to mess with. And he invested in something called a kolkhoz, which is kind of like a farm. It used to be a state-owned farm, but then they got privatized after the wall came down, and it was just the wild west. So my dad and a few other people invested together, and the kolkhoz CEO at one point decided not to do anything for the kolkhoz. He just decided to drink and have fun, and and he spent the money. So when my dad realized it, he just sold our possessions, and I think he had $1,000 left to his name, and then we just moved to Israel once we paid off the debt. And that sparked one of the most difficult eras of my life and in the life of my family members, because we quickly sank into debt. My dad went to see a doctor, discovered he had diabetes. Then he went into a double bypass, and he couldn't find work. The few occasions when he could find work usually was some sort of security guard job, which obviously didn't pay anything. But to make it worse, the security company would usually hire him, keep him for about 8 months, and then fire him for 3 months to only rehire him again after a 3 months period, because that was their way to leverage the loophole where if they didn't employ him for 9 months straight, they didn't have to give him seniority and, of course, raise his paycheck, give him benefits, and so on. And, growing up, my dad remembered that when he was a part of the Soviet army, life was good. So he told me that I should do the same. And so in Israel, everyone has to do mandatory army service. So my parents enrolled me into a Israeli Air Force Academy when I was about 14. And I spent the next 6 years being trained as a soldier and going to school all at the same time. I was wearing the uniform. I had my beret always sitting on my left shoulder. Like I was a proper little soldier. And then I enrolled into the actual military, did my boot camp, and started serving my time. And, I say serving my time as if it's prison because it kind of felt like prison. Like I realized quickly that it wasn't the life I wanted, because the guys who graduated before me, a couple of years before me, they were already serving for a few years and they were still frustrated and broken. I mean, it was just they seemed like a bunch of miserable dudes. That's the impression I've got. So I decided I didn't want to do that, and I quickly found loopholes to get out of the army. I kind of broke that bureaucratic machine, which is when, I learned quite a few lessons, to be honest with you, trying to game the system. And so once I got out, I got involved in network marketing as a result of reading Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, because in the book he says, look, you should do real estate, but if you don't have, but you should also go in business for yourself. And if you don't have any business ideas or money or sense or whatever, just go into MLM. And by becoming a network marketer, you'll learn lots of great skills, including a skill of actually selling, which I did. But I went into an online market I went into network marketing in the online space. So I seeked out these network marketing companies that were internet friendly, if you will. And as a result, I got involved and exposed, I guess, in the world of digital marketing, social media marketing, blogging, running ads. At the time when I started, MySpace was still around. It was still a thing. So you could build MySpace profiles promoting your business. I think I had 5 or something. And I just kind of built that skill set of a digital marketer. I quickly understood what WordPress was, and I started building WordPress websites. I became skilled, but I wasn't making any money. And it was through that I got exposed to affiliate marketing, which made a lot more sense to me than network marketing, because it had that commission element where I didn't have to create the product myself and I could make money. But there was no human motivation required. Like I didn't have to build a team and keep them, motivated to continue to do the work, and I didn't have to do any kind of 3-way meetings or go to hotel lobbies and pretend I'm having fun. And so that's where I've experienced my first success. It was when I combined affiliate marketing with building my own email list, which at the time I came to realize is probably the only one thing that is common for anyone who was successful making money on the internet. They all had email lists, and it's like the bigger the list they had, the more money they were making. And when I realized that, I kind of put all my effort into building my list. I really just did everything. Like I tried every technique to do it, but everything I've done was eventually leading to an opt-in form or a capture page that was asking people for an email address. And it was after I built my first list of, I believe at the time was about 1,700 people or 2,000 people, that I started mailing offers. And I remember one day I had like this little thing that I've done on the side where I would drive people to the airport to make some extra money using my dad's car. And I came back from one of these trips, and I think I must have been stuck in traffic for at least 3 hours. on a 6-hour drive. It was terrible. I came back, my back was hurting like hell, and I just sat down and realized I didn't write my email for the day because I was really trying to stick to that daily email routine. And that day there was a new product launching. It was, I think, $70 or $67, and it paid a 50% commission. And there were also a few upsells that paid, I think, 40% commission as well. And I just sat down and I wrote an email. It was like a really heartfelt email, like I didn't really write a marketing email. I just shared my thoughts like it was my diary. And in that email, I really spoke about my back pain. Even though I was only like 20 something years old, I was already experiencing, really, really painful lower back pain. And I just kind of wrote that, and then I linked to the product. And that was like a very personable email, kind of like exposing myself, being a little bit vulnerable. And that night, I woke up the next morning to discover that overnight I've made 17 sales with one email. And it was like jackpot, baby. And I didn't, like, I slept and I woke up with an extra, I believe it was what, $307, about $500 or so. There were a few upsells too, but I woke up and having made that night more money than I was making like in a few days of actual manual labor and hard work.
Yeah.
At the time I was in housekeeping. I was working in a hotel housekeeping. So I was just scrubbing hotel rooms and all sorts of territories and toilets. That was it. I mean, that was my proof of concept. That was everything that I needed to double down. Like I thought I was already working pretty hard, but that was the moment I doubled down. I just really devoted myself to this skill of generating people into my email list and mailing them with offers. That's really been my focus for years and years and years. And I think I owe almost every single dollar I've ever made online to that, to these two skills.
So when that happened, what did you do? Was it a case of, okay, I now just need to stop doing everything else and just focus on my email list?
It was that, yeah. As soon as I saw a big result, a big outcome from a relatively small action, which is writing and sending an email, I immediately started doing more of that, writing more heartfelt emails, more, story-based emails, more emails that spoke to personal qualities, to concerns and problems and issues. Like, it was my accidental discovery that the more emotion I could inject into my emails, the more money I would eventually make. And another discovery I made shortly after is the more I emailed, the more I made. And one thing that I've done back then, better, I think, than many people who had email lists, probably much bigger than mine, is I wasn't afraid to mail my list. And these days, when I teach people to email their lists and to build lists, one of the most common things that I see is people actually building a list, spending money, time, effort, energy to build a list and not mail the list. Like, they're afraid to do it. They don't know what to say. But they just let thousands of people just sit there and forget about them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this is the thing. I think that there can be an element of fear in people's minds, which is, I'm going to annoy these people if I'm emailing them every day. Did you ever have that mindset, or were you just like, no, I need to get out there and just email people on a regular basis?
I think I was just being very intuitive with what I was doing. I didn't have a plan. And I would just, as soon as I got this gratification coming, when I refreshed my commission screen and just commission bar grew significantly, I just kind of tried to ask myself, well, what did I do that preceded that, and can I do more of that on purpose? And it's funny, because I kind of do that all the time, even today, where I would have an accidental success. Could be a small success, could be a medium-sized success, and then I would ask myself, interesting, can I make it happen again? And I would try and go back and reverse engineer it, because I've never been a creative person. I've never been the kind of guy who can come up with creative solutions. For example, like my best friend Dennis, he's like that. He's almost a genius. I say almost because I don't want him to get too
too big-headed. Yeah,
too big-headed. Yeah, we don't want that. But he's almost a genius, because these days, like, if we have a problem, I actually call him up and I say, this is the problem, and I just shut up. He kind of thinks for a few minutes and he kind of spits out a solution. Or maybe I'll call him up and I'll say, can this happen? Like, is this possible? Can we make this happen? And he'd tell me, yeah, let me think about it. And then 2 days later, he comes back and here we go. But I was never like that. I'm the kind of guy who actually doesn't like to think of creative solutions. Rather, I would much rather be told what to do and just double down and go do it, like a mechanic almost. And I guess my Army education is to blame for that, because in the Army, they don't really teach you to think. Mm-hmm. They just want you to execute. And I was very good at that. I was always great at executing. So I can't sit behind my computer for 16 hours straight and be super devoted to achieving this one goal or one mission. I can be like that. I can be very focused, but I can't be creative. So when something happens because I accidentally, without thinking about it or without being strategic about it, did something, I go back. Just because I recognize I'm not creative, and I want to try and understand what happened there. How did I accidentally, hit oil or something? So yeah, that's definitely been a skill that helped me out with email marketing, because remember, at the time, I mean, these days, there's so many people talking about email marketing. Mm-hmm. There's so many experts. There's so many knowledgeable folks. But back when I started, we're talking about 12 years ago, 10 years ago, when I was like really into it, there wasn't much education about it. And the people who were doing the educating, they were guessing half the time. There was no like, they didn't have the data to back up what they were teaching. They were just saying, hey, I did something and it worked, and here's what I did. Here's a case study. Or they were like trying to give you rules that weren't really effective, didn't really apply to you. Like how many times did I hear, oh, you should email your list once a week, when that was actually the wrong way to go about it? Or how many times did you hear, oh, you should only email your list, you should only email anyone who gets on your list for 7 days, and if they don't buy anything, that's it, they're never going to buy? That's also not true. I've got people on my list who buy after 6 months, 8 months. I had one guy one time email me. It's like, Igor, I've been on your list for 4 years, and this last email you sent finally got me.
Yeah.
We've got a ton of people who always say something like, I've been following Igor for 10 years, 8 years, 5 years, and I finally decided to pull the trigger when they talk to my team. And it's super common. It's super common. Yeah. So the whole idea of mailing your list once a week, or to giving up on your leads after a week of mailing them, those just not true.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned before, you say that, you're not that creative, but you have written books.
Yes, I have written books, and I've written them without being creative. Believe it or not, I also write lots of ad copy and sales copy. I come up with lots of ads and lots of angles for my promotions, but those aren't creative either. For example, my most recent ad about e-farming has already generated close to 1.5 million views on YouTube. Wow. And that ad is really hitting well. Like if you're browsing YouTube, you might see it soon if you haven't seen it before, especially if you're interested in the topic of making money online, or making money in general, running the business, etc. But everything that I do, I try to be as least creative about it as possible, because I know that creativity requires lots of brain power and lots of time. My least favorite thing to do is to get in front of a blank sheet of paper where I have to write a headline or an email subject line. I would usually much rather either model something that works, or I come up with formulas and templates and I use those. The way I got introduced to the whole concept of copywriting, which is salesmanship in print, was through a book by Dan Kennedy called The Ultimate Sales Letter. And I think it's a great book, not because it teaches great copywriting techniques. No, I don't think that's the greatest book for that. I think there's quite a few books out there who teach you much better copywriting techniques, and they're great at teaching, they're great at inspiring you, and so on and so forth. But the one thing The Ultimate Sales Letter did for me, which completely changed my life, because it allowed me to really buy into the idea that I don't have to be creative to come up with $1 million sales copy, is that copy is templates. Copy is building blocks. So in other words, the way you write a headline, right, there's probably 20 or 40 different formulas for a headline. One of the most familiar ones you've probably seen before is how to blank, right? How to benefit, or how about how to benefit without the thing that you hate, where you just have to replace the thing that you hate with whatever. So let's write 3 headlines right now, and let's write them for 3 different markets. How about the skincare market? So how to have fewer wrinkles without plastic surgery. Bam, that's a headline. Let's write one for weight loss. How to lose 5 pounds in 2 weeks without giving up chocolate. There you go. That's a headline. Let's write one for a business owner who is struggling to hire a superstar VA, right? So how to get more time and more freedom in your life and your business without having to pay a 6-figure salary to a Harvard grad, level VA or something like that. So like you can come up with this stuff on the fly if you know the formulas, and there's formulas like that for everything. So the Ultimate Sales Letter, what it did for me, it basically took this whole concept of a long form 24-page sales letter that we've all received in the mail at one point or another, or maybe you want to imagine just a website sales page where it's like really long, you have to scroll through it for 3 hours, right? And it broke it down. It's like, okay, this is a headline, this is an opener, this is bullet point section, this is the guarantee, this is the close, this is sales argument number 1, sales argument number 2, this is the PS, this is the takeaway selling, this is the value build, this is the stack. And all of a sudden you look at this stuff and it's like you got x-ray vision now, because you're like, oh, I see what's going on here. Mm-hmm. It's really not that difficult. And the same concept can be applied to almost any area of your life, because it is typical that whoever is proficient or effective at some it's some niche expertise or thing, they appear creative, but if you start studying them and you watch them do something one after another, you'll be able to break down the commonalities of what they do. Like, I'll give you a great example. My one of my best buddies back in Israel, his name is Stas, and he runs a deli, and he sells like all kinds of groceries and stuff. But I've helped him start a YouTube channel and do some video ads on Facebook as well, which helped him grow his store to be about double the size of his largest competitor within 3 years. To a point, and I'm not making this up, to a point where his biggest competitor actually went ahead and threatened the suppliers, because the suppliers for this town are all the same. They all come in and supply all the stores. Threatening the suppliers that if they sell to my friend, he'll stop buying from them. And my friend got so big that they said, you know what, if you're going to do that, we respect it, but we can't stop selling to him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. So my buddy Stas is extremely creative. Extremely. Like, he approaches everything with great creativity. But I noticed something. I was watching him cook a lot, because together we were recording these videos where he would be like doing barbecue and all kinds of ribs and steaks and stuff like that for the ads, right? Because he would record an ad making a steak, and then he would invite people to his store saying, hey, we got the best meat for this stuff. Here's you see this lean cut, you can come in and buy this and I'll prep this for you. So it was very convenient, right? So it's kind of like, you watch it, you see him make it, and then it's like, oh, I need these ingredients and I already have the tutorial, so I'll just go and buy it from him.
Yeah.
So he became a bit of a celebrity after doing that. So I was the one originally helping him film. Like, we just had a DSLR camera, or sometimes I would use my phone and I would like film everything. He would be doing it and talking about it as he does it. So after doing about 5 of these in a row, where he did poultry, beef, a steak of some kind, some lamb, and a bunch of other stuff, it always appeared amazing and creative, right? However, I spotted a few commonalities. First thing, the oils he's using, the spices he's using. He would always put sugar on the meat, always. And if he doesn't put it straight on the meat, he would like put it in the sauce. So whenever he would like smear the sauce all over the meat, it would be sweet, which naturally made it tastier to people. Like, he would have his rules about the temperature and the time that you need to hold the meat. So to an untrained eye, it appeared like it was like voodoo magic, right? But you spend enough time with him in the kitchen, and you're like, oh, I see what's going on. And then you can apply the same rules. So if it's a sauce, it has to have sugar in it. If it's spices, these are the top 3 to use. If it's fish, then you got to do this and remove this part from the fish, etc. You spend enough time with him and you realize there's actual rules. It's just he never put them in a book. Right? That's the only difference. Like, he can't articulate how he does it, but he quickly comes up with a set of rules for everything that he does. And I've also seen him do the same with learning video editing, because I would help him film the videos, but I would not be doing the editing. I don't like to do that. But he got on YouTube, he watched a few tutorials, and all of a sudden he's doing the editing. Now, why is that? How is that possible? Well, all he had to do is just figure out, okay, here's the basic things, the 5 things you need to do to make the video good. 1, work on the color gamma inside the software, so modify the colors. 2, cut out all the water and all the empty space, all the silence, great. Add a transition, awesome. Add subtitles, great. And add some background music. There you go. There's your video. And see, that's 5 rules that can be applied to virtually any video. So almost anything that I do, I usually try to break it down into a system, and it allows me to get into things that I have nothing, that I know nothing about, and actually do it pretty successfully. For example, I've got a daughter, she's 10, and I'm really sensitive about her self-esteem. Like, when she grows up, I want to ensure that her self-esteem is bulletproof, because there's going to be plenty of people in life that are going to try to put her down, like it happened to me many times. And I regret spending my teenage years in Israel really allowing bullies to take over my self-image, and really believed that I wasn't worthy, that I was, basically beneath them, so to speak. Of course, ain't the case right now. They're looking at my Facebook post driving my Porsche Panamera GTS, and they're messaging me asking me to teach them how to do it. But of course, I just ignore them. I still hold a grudge, but I'm kind of like that. But I guess what I'm saying is, one thing that I heard in a book is that it's easier for us, and I'm sure that it's actually true. Otherwise, I wouldn't actually follow through on it. But it's easier for us to imagine ourselves in a story and take on ideas through a story rather than someone telling us. So it doesn't matter how many times I can tell to my daughter, and she's amazing, she's great, and that I'm proud of her, etc. What I felt would be really cool is if she could see herself as a superhero in a story. Because growing up, I used to be, and still am, really inspired by superhero stories. I'm a huge Marvel fan, huge Batman fan. And anytime I would watch like something like Iron Man or Batman, I would always try to imagine myself as them, overcoming this big obstacle or finding like this crazy smart enemy. But my daughter didn't resonate. Apparently, she needed a female character. And so when Captain Marvel came out with the, proper first like superpower female character besides Wonder Woman, which came out later, she really went into that. She really liked the movie. And I had an idea. It's like, interesting. What if I actually create a comic book where she's the hero, like my daughter Erica is the hero? And I ended up doing that. I brought in an artist, and I brought in a story, like a story script writer. I had I gave them an outline of what I wanted that to look like. The writer did the writing. I took that to the artist. The artist broke it into sections and screens. And within about 6 months or so, and after spending, I think, about $3,000 total, I've had the first edition of Erica and the Birds, where she's saving the town and the planet. Well, the town, actually, not the planet, but where three guys basically steal all the birds. They come up with this device that attracts all the birds, so they put them all into one giant cage. But all of a sudden, you've got no one to spread the seeds, and it's like, it's a big problem. So they call on Erica to save the day, and she uses her super hearing, to find the bad guys in the woods and kick some ass. So I liked the process so much that I kind of boiled down the template for the process. So it starts with an outline, then it needs to turn into a story with dialogue, then we move it to an artist who breaks it into section, and then he just gets the sections done, and then I just take that to a print house and they print it. That I did 2 more comic books within the next 6 months. So the following 2 comic books were produced much faster and cheaper than the first one, because I was able to get the system down. So this systematic thinking, I try to apply it to pretty much anything, and it really helps me out, including, by the way, my marriage, which is where I've been applying it more recently, where I've been paying attention to what I say or what I do and how it makes my wife feel, and vice versa. I've been trying to spot what she does that makes me feel a certain way, and trying to eliminate the bad stuff and encourage the good stuff. And that's been working really well. I really feel like for many years, my marriage satisfaction levels were pretty low, and because I would just invest most of my time into my business, just like any entrepreneur. I guess we tend to work 80 hours a week and stuff, right? But recently I've been really paying attention to that, because several of my friends in the industry got divorced. And that was kind of unexpected. And you see them do crazy things, like going to Thailand and like taking 3 years off and stuff like that. I don't want to go through that, to be honest with you. Like I like my wife, I like my marriage, I like my family life. So I was thinking, okay, what do I need to do with that? And so I started spotting what are the things that I do accidentally that make her go like, oh, you really love me, and what are the things she does accidentally that make me go, oh, I really love that. And so as a result, the satisfaction levels in the marriage, at least for me, I don't know about her, I didn't ask her, but at least for me, went up significantly because I became more conscious about the accidental stuff that happened, and now I can make it happen on purpose. For example, and I didn't know that, I used to give my wife flowers. I know she loves flowers, but I approached it like an entrepreneur, and I just had my assistant order them every 2 weeks and send them over to my house.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
the first time was nice. The second time was okay. But the third time, my wife didn't even bat an eye. It wasn't so much as a thank you. And I was like, what's up? And she says, well, you didn't do it. I said, no, I did it. It's just I wasn't the one dialing the store, but I paid for it and I organized the system for it. She said, yeah, but you didn't actually physically go and got them
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
And first I argued with her, but then after a few hours, I sort of accepted it. And one time I remember going to get some milk in the grocery store and seeing flowers at the counter and literally just grab the first one, the nearest by to me, just grab the bouquet and bring it home. And my wife was really, really, really excited about it. So now I would make a point every couple of weeks to go to the grocery store, which I usually don't go to. My wife does that, and our housekeeper does that sometimes. So I would go there even if I have no reason to go, just to take the flowers so I could, make my wife happy. Again, why? Because it happened accidentally, but I had enough awareness to say, oh, look at that. This is interesting. Maybe I can make it happen on purpose. And so now I don't have to wonder about how to make my wife smile. I have the exact system to make it happen. And somebody may say I'm creative or whatever, but a lot of it comes down to just observation. I really think people go through life these days, they're not observing. That's why I love to hang out with entrepreneurs, because they are so engaged with what they do. They really pay attention to detail. They're not like mindlessly trying to go through life. They're not wandering about. They're really, really, really focused and engaged. But most people are not. Most people are like drifters, if you will. It's what Napoleon Hill spoke about in his book Outwitting the Devil, which I think is 100 times, 1,000 times better than Think and Grow Rich, which is a great book. But Outwitting the Devil, I think, should be taught in schools because it's just amazing. Such a good book.
I mean, you've achieved so much as well, Igor, and I guess you're now based in Canada, right? So you moved your family. Was that after the success had started, or was that something that you did before kind of really kickstarting your business?
So I made my first million before I turned 24, 25, and I moved to Canada when I was 29 or 28. So it was definitely after. And it took me a few years to actually pull the trigger because my parents stayed back in Israel. My parents wouldn't be able to go through another immigration. My dad is just health-wise, he's not going to be able to pull it off. Plus, learning the language, etc., is just too much for them. So I had to make a decision to leave them back home and move, my wife and my kids to Canada for the sake of higher quality of life and a brighter future. And it was definitely after I achieved success. And I think I wouldn't move unless I achieved success, because I think what really helped me pull the trigger and what helps me wake up in the morning with some confidence is the fact that I'm making so much money that most problems, not all of them, of course, that most problems that come my way I can fix with money. So coming here, I was pretty confident about being able to settle in, being able to figure out the game. I quickly built a network, and I really got to say, I'm pretty sure none of them are listening to this, but I'm really grateful to all the people that I've met along the way, both the service providers who made money off of me, as well as people who just helped me pro bono to help me settle here and help me learn the rules of the game, rules of engagement. It took me about 2 years to fully settle in and feel comfortable, to get my systems dialed in. Again, I bring this thinking to everything I do. So, to get a lawyer, a CPA, know how to file my taxes, figure out my credit score, which was a brand new thing to me because there's no such thing as a credit score in Israel. So that took a while to figure out. I came in and I brought in like over $1 million in savings, and they're like, no, we're not going to give you a loan for a Lexus. Okay, will you give me one for Toyota? No. Will you give me one for a Ford? No. Why is that? I'm rich. I can buy this car cash. Yeah, but your credit score sucks. You don't have credit history. It's oh, come on.
So would you say your reward after kind of achieving that success was then to move your family to Canada?
I wouldn't call it a reward. I don't think moving my family to Canada was a reward for anything. It's not like I was holding back. I think the step to move them to Canada was just long-term thinking, because as much as I love Israel, it's not first world country. Lots of different issues. Canada is a first world country. It's a great base to have, a baseline for my kids, for my family. Great healthcare, very little crime. Society where I don't have to be worried about being stabbed on the street over religious beliefs and things like that. A great monetary system, housing system is pretty good. A lot of people get rich in Canada just because they lived here and had a house. They really didn't. And I met some of these people. They're driving really nice cars and live in big houses. And I was like, wow, these must be really smart, capable people. And then I meet with them and I realize they're idiots. I mean, I really don't have another word for that. They're just average, normal people with nothing exceptional about them. Simply, they have like a regular day job, and they just, had a house that really went up in value. So they refinanced or upgraded, and there was nothing that they've achieved in life that I would consider to be extraordinary. And it took me a few years to accept that, to really, truly accept that, oftentimes getting rich is not about you and who you are as a person. It's more about being in a certain place at a certain time and just capitalizing on one or two opportunities that come your way. Because that's what a lot of people here did. A lot of people got rich here just because they came in when the real estate industry was developing. The mortgage interest rates were really low. Some of my acquaintances here bought houses with no money down. If I could get housing with no money down, I'd be a lot richer today. I'll tell you that.
If anybody that wants to follow in your footsteps and learn more about you and your success, and also your courses, your books, and so on, where do they need to go? What's the website to visit?
I recommend starting out by reading my book. It's called The List Building Lifestyle, and you can either get it on Amazon for, I believe, something like $12 or $20. Or I would recommend going to igorsbook.com and allowing me to ship you a free physical copy of my book, and just chip in on shipping and handling, so I can do that for you. But in addition, for you chipping in on shipping and handling, I think it's less than $10. I will also give you the digital version of the book for free. I will give you the Audible version of the book for free. I will also throw in over $3,200 in bonuses, giving you some of my best templates, some courses, and even traffic training, so you can actually go and start building your own list if you haven't started yet. So I'm putting together this giant ethical bribe because I practice what I preach. And if you buy the book on Amazon, I will not be able to get you on my email list. As simple as that. Amazon will not share the biggest asset by far, which is the email address of the buyer. So I encourage you to go to igorsbook.com and start this relationship with me. Read my book, get introduced into my world, and explore what else we got going on. Because regardless of where you are in life, I'm pretty sure I can leave you off better off than what I found you. If you engage with what we got.
And there's a tease. Igor Kheifets, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.